Federal investigators are reviewing body camera footage from multiple angles in the fatal shooting death of Alex Pretti. He is the second person killed by a federal agent in Minnesota just this month. It remains unclear if that body camera footage, though, will be released to the public. The handling of evidence in the case raises concerns about the credibility of this investigation. I want to bring in CBS News senior coordinating producer Anna Schecter for more on this. Anna, this investigation is being led by ICE's Homeland Security Investigations branch. Does that department, and only by that branch, does that department have the capacity and the tools to do this type of investigation? Is any officer involved shooting? Is this something that they typically do?
It's a great question, and it is absolutely not what they typically do. HSI conducts investigations. They're a part of ICE. They are looking into drug trafficking, arms trafficking, human trafficking, any kind of gang activity under ICE. So this is highly unusual. In fact, most of our sources that we were talking to were just stunned that HSI would lead this investigation. Generally, you would have the FBI working with state and local law enforcement to conduct this investigation into what is described. It's an officer-involved shooting. It's a shooting where a federal agent opened fired and killed someone, which should immediately trigger an investigation. But as you said, that was so well said that it does raise questions about the integrity of this investigation, Liz.
Is there an avenue, Anna, for the state or other investigative agencies to access evidence in this case, including that body camera footage? And will the public ever get to see that footage or video on Alex Pretti's own phone that you saw him using there just moments before the shooting?
Well, this is such a great question, and it also harkens back to Renee Good, who was shot and killed just 3 weeks ago. What we saw was the White House wound up putting out on social media the video from the officer who fired the lethal shots to show his point of view, but it's sort of this ad hoc thing. It's whatever the administration wants to put out. So it's unclear if we will ever see the material. Now, I will say for our viewers, generally during an investigation, law enforcement would not release a video until the conclusion of the investigation, generally speaking. You know, we as journalists, we always ask for it. However, there are so many questions surrounding this investigation. I think it would go a long way for officials to put out as much information as possible and be as transparent as possible, since there is this cloud. And you asked about whether the state and local authorities will be able to access it. It appears, for at least in the near future, no. And in fact, the Minnesota Bureau of Apprehension withdrew from the Renee Good investigation because they said the FBI would not share crucial information and evidence, and therefore they could not conduct even their own investigation. Liz.
I want to get to the details of what those 40 seconds show, the moment that Alex Pretti was shot. There's a lot of confusion as to who fired that first shot that led to the killing of Pretti. We're hearing that that first shot may have come from Pretti's own gun by the ICE officer that took it off of him. And then the actual fatal shots were from another officer who was reacting to that first shot. What are you learning about those details?
Well, that's right, Liz. That type of gun that Pretti had is actually the same or similar to what some of the agents are given for their duties. But it is a gun that sometimes can go off on its own. It could have been fired by mistake, and it could have even gone off on its own as he was taking it away. But what you also hear on that video is you hear the agents say, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun," and they're clearly afraid. So we are learning a lot more about the moment to moment what happened. And I'm so glad you asked this question, because I think sometimes people see 1, 2, or even 3 video angles of something and they think they have all the information. But actually there is a lot of things happening. There are a lot of things happening all at once. It is impossible to know exactly what happened just from seeing that video. And a real sober investigation needs to happen. And now some of those details, like what you just mentioned, are coming out, that the first shot might have been fired by that gun, likely by mistake, which then triggered the other agents to fear for their lives and fire those deadly shots.
One more question about the investigation, Anna. The fact that DHS is the only agency that right now is investigating what happened with Alex Pretti, what kind of impact is that going to have on potential court cases moving forward, lawsuits? Is that going to have an impact on how this case could potentially be tried?
It's a great question, and yes, it will, because we have to have a chain of command for the evidence. The gun, for example, that was taken off of Pretti should be placed in a plastic bag, sealed, DNA evidence taken from it, fingerprints taken from it in an organized way according to protocol. The weapons from the agents who fired should also be entered into evidence. So there needs to be, we call it a chain of command for this evidence. And it needs to be collected in such a way that a prosecutor could potentially use it if they wanted to bring charges. Now, that is a big if, I will say, because the statutes say that if these agents did fear for their lives and if they felt it was an imminent threat, they could potentially make that argument and make it strong enough so that charges are not brought. But of course, you want the justice system to be able to play out. You want to preserve that option for an attorney general. That's generally what would happen. You would actually have the Minnesota attorney general generally involved in this investigation. And that is not happening at this time, raising more questions, Liz.
Anna Schecter, thank you so much. Always great to be with you.